Hey guys, it's Max. I'm back with another video, and in this one I'm talking about the top 5 downsides or problems of the NX1. Now, I've had this camera for about a month and a half now, and honestly I wanted to have my full review and GH4 comparison out about 2 weeks ago. Now, the problem I keep having is Samsung keeps pushing out new firmware updates, and this is actually my third time trying to make this video, and I can't because every time I make it, they end up announcing another update, which makes it hard for me because I want to have an accurate video. But it's actually great for everybody because it shows that Samsung actually cares about this camera. They're serious about entering this new market. This is their first kind of pro/semi-pro camera that they're actually serious about. So it's fantastic that they're doing that. And I don't know any other camera company that has pushed out firmware updates and new features and fixes as fast as this one has. If you guys know of another company that does that, let me know in the description below. Now, before we get started, I do want to say if you guys have not yet subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss my full review and GH4 comparison. You also don't want to miss my video on that awesome toy right there, which I'll be doing. And you definitely want to go and check out my previous videos that I have on the NX1 and a bunch of other photography, video, gear, and videos like that. So let's get into it. Number 5 is going to be ergonomics. While in general this camera fits nicely in the hand and also has a decent button layout, you have your ISO, your white balance, and your other settings on the left-hand side on top of that dial. So what that does for me is when I'm holding the camera, if I want to change my ISO, I literally have to either stretch my hand all the way out, which feels really uncomfortable, or more than likely you're going to have to take your hand off and press the ISO button to be able to adjust that. I really wish they would have stuck with a more standard design to have it above your little display there with your settings, so you can literally just reach up your finger, hit that button, and change ISO or whatever else really easily and quickly. But you know, you do kind of have that inconvenience. I'm not sure why they did that, but one thing they do have is on their lenses they have a little eye function button, so you can hit that button, you can select your ISO and be able to change that there. So I've been using that, and I've took the ISO button and I mapped it to my back scroll wheel. So if I want to, when I'm shooting, I could just spin that and adjust my ISO quickly. Works a lot better for me. I don't have to take my hand off. But the downside is it's easy to kind of accidentally spin the ISO. So that's one thing I wish they would have changed. Now the other thing is the Samsung NX1 does have a flip up and down screen. Now it's definitely nicer than having a fixed screen, but I would have much rather preferred like on the GH4 where you have an actual flip out screen so you can rotate it, you can adjust all your angles, you have a lot more flexibility. And right now when I'm shooting with the GH4, I can actually see myself, I can see my focus peaking, and I can see, I'm framed correctly. So in those cases, it's just a little bit more flexibility. I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't know why a lot of companies don't add that. It's not like this is an A7S where they're trying to make it as small as possible, so they don't want to add the thickness there. Number 4 is going to be the buffer. Now, along with being a very nice video camera, the NX1 also has some really awesome photography features. It shoots 15 frames per second RAW with full autofocus, and that's really unheard of unless you're stepping into that about $5,000–6,000 body range with the Nikon or Canon cameras. So along with that, one issue that you do come up to, one bottleneck, is the buffer. If you're shooting the 15 frames per second RAW, you're only going to get about 20 images before it dramatically slows down. So you have just over a second. Now, if you shoot the JPEG, put it into the JPEG mode, you're going to get about 70 photos. So, you have a little bit more time there, but once again, you have a lot less information if you're going to have to adjust that in post. Now, comparing it to the biggest competitor on the photography side, which is the Canon 7D Mark II, that camera shoots 10 frames per second, but the buffer is quite a bit bigger in RAW, and in JPEG there's a dramatic difference. So even if you're shooting JPEG on the NX1 at about 10 frames per second, which is what the 7D Mark II does, you're going to get about, just under 200 photos, maybe about 170-ish. Now, on the 7D Mark II, shooting at JPEG, you're going to get over 1,000 before it starts to slow down. So that is quite a difference. So if you're a photography shooter that wants to shoot high frame rate, especially shooting RAW, and you need more than 1 second there, you might run into some issues. So definitely keep that in mind. Of course, you can throw it into the JPEG mode, or you can slow down to maybe about 8 frames per second to give you about 3 seconds of RAW shooting before slowing down. But that is one issue that could have been improved. Number 3 is going to be the 29-minute and 59-second recording limit in video. So this is an issue that we get with most cameras, and it's not because camera manufacturers just feel like giving you this limit. It's because of some tax, European tax laws and stuff like that, which may get changed in the future. Hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers. But the biggest competitor to the Samsung NX1 is the GH4. They're both relatively inexpensive cameras that shoot 4K internally. Now, the GH4 can shoot for an unlimited amount of time. If you throw in a 128 gig card, you can shoot for about 3.5 hours, and you don't have to, stop recording, start recording like you do on most DSLR type cameras. Now, NX1, along with all the other DSLR style cameras, does have that half-hour recording limit. I really, 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 really wish they would have removed this. I'm an event videographer mainly, so it's nice to be able to hit record, and if there's a speech going on, ceremony, whatever else, to be able to have one long take without missing, maybe even a second of trying to quickly stop and start that recording. So I would actually pay a little bit more to have that. I know if they have to pay a certain amount of tax, I would be able to pitch in personally. It'd be really awesome if this is something that you could do afterwards, maybe pay that tax and get a special firmware or have another body or whatever. So this is something that I really would like, but for most people that you're recording small clips, it might be not as big of an issue. Now, on the upside, the formatting that the NX1 uses for its memory card allows it to have a single clip that is a half hour. On the GH4 and a lot of other cameras, your clips are split up into 4 GB chunks, so you have about 6.5 minutes on the GH4, so even if you're recording 3 hours straight, it's going to split up into little files that you then have to put back together, and it's still seamless, but it's an extra step. Surprisingly, on the NX1, if you're shooting a half-hour clip, it's just one single clip, so that's a nice kind of an upside to this limit, I guess. Number 2 is going to be the H.265 codec. Now, the NX1 is the first camera to support this codec, and this new codec is a replacement of the older H.264 codec, which almost every other camera uses. Now, this new codec is about half the file size for the same amount of detail, so it's a lot more compression, which is really great if you want to save on memory card space, which memory cards aren't that expensive, but it's also really nice for online streaming. A lot of the online streaming services are moving that way. Now, the biggest issue is the two biggest kind of video editing software, which is Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere Pro, don't support it just yet. Hopefully soon they will, but at this point, if you want to edit the format, even watching the format, you're going to either download another player, or to edit, you're going to have to convert the format or the files before you can put the files in there to edit. So I have a video that I'll put a little link right here, so you guys can go check out the video and see how I personally do this, the whole process. It's not too hard to do, but it does take time. So if you're a person that needs to get home after a shoot, or you need to be able to edit, post something online, you need to do it quick, you don't have the time to wait for that transcoding. Or if you're a person like me, which if I'm shooting weddings, I'll have 3 cameras with about 6 hours of footage on each one. I can't really wait for all that, 30, 40 hours of converting. For most people, it's going to take about 2 to 3 times longer. So if you have 1 hour of footage, it might take 2 to 3 hours to convert that 1 hour of footage to be able to edit it. So if you're not doing very big projects or projects that need to be edited right now and uploaded, that might not be an issue. You can grab your files, you can leave it overnight, it's going to get converted. But if you're someone like me, this is something that I really can't deal with. Now, if the actual NX1 had the older codec along with the newer codec, I would honestly have 3 of these NX1s right now. I would sell my 2 GH4s and I would get 2 more NX1s and I would just use these cameras. It'd be absolutely fantastic. So I really, really wish that they would have implemented both codecs or just stuck with the H.264 codec to be able to make it easier for a lot of us. I feel like a lot of people are holding back from this camera because that's an extra step, extra work, extra time that they can't use their computer because it's going full blast trying to transcode that footage to do. So that's a really big issue for me. Number 1 on my list is going to be the video low light. Now in photo mode, this camera is quite impressive, especially for an APS-C sensor that's 28 megapixel. In video mode, we have a little bit of a different scenario. At 1600 or below, the camera does really well. So well, in fact, that about at 800 ISO, it does, about the same as the GH4 at 200. And the GH4 is not known for its low light. It's the biggest downfall of that camera. At 3200 ISO, they're about even, I would say, the GH4 and the NX1. And at 6400 ISO, the GH4 actually is better than the NX1. Now, the reason why I think this is because of that H.265 codec. It really tries to compress the image to get that smaller file size. Now, if you know about the way that compression works and noise works, the more noise you have in your image, the more data it takes up. So if it's limiting to a certain data rate, then it basically has to smear that noise out. Get the noise out to keep that file size down. So with the GH4, you do see a lot of film grain-like noise, but you can do that, you can adjust that yourself when you're editing. You know, you can use a denoiser, or you could do whatever. On the NX1, it really almost smears that to get rid of it, to keep the file size low, which in turn gives you a worse looking image overall. So definitely check out that GH4 versus NX1 comparison video that I did to see more details, see more scenarios. But that is my biggest kind of downside of this camera. I was really hoping for an improvement over my GH4s. That's, the biggest downside of those. So keep that in mind. If you're somebody that's gonna have to shoot at 6400 ISO often, you might wanna, consider that before purchasing the NX1. But if you're like most people, which, shoot at, not that often at 3200 or typically 1600 or below, I think you're gonna be very satisfied with this camera. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully it was informative. You got some good data points to consider if you're choosing between these two cameras, or you just want to buy an NX1. And let me know what you guys thought in the description. If you have any questions, make sure you ask. And if you enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. Now, if you're not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss out on future videos I'll have on this camera, as well as other cool filmmaking, photo video gear videos, especially that one that I'm gonna have coming up soon. Don't miss out on that, guys. And I wanna say that this is just a video on the downsides of the NX1. Overall, this is an absolutely fantastic camera. And in fact, I think this is the best hybrid camera that there is out right now, even better than the 5D Mark III, other cameras like that. You get some fantastic video features, you get the 4K, you get the 120 frames per second, and you get really nice photography stills, good fast autofocus, high frame rate, just a bunch of really good things with this camera. And I actually have it on my website. If you guys haven't seen my website, check it out. I'll have a link in the description as my recommendation for 4K video overall over the GH4. So keep that in mind. I really like this camera. I don't think I'm hating on it. A lot of people, if they see a video like this, they're like, hey, why are you hating on this camera? You're so wrong. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I just want to make sure you guys know about the downsides of this camera. So if you guys are going to pick up one of these cameras, or a GH4 or anything else, I'm going to have some links in the description, which are going to be linking to B&H, Amazon, and Adorama, whatever is your choice. You guys can use one of those links before you're buying, and that just basically supports what I do here. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of testing to be able to make these videos, and that just doesn't cost you any extra and just supports the channel, helps me keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully soon I can do this full time to get the videos out faster to you guys, get more interaction, more information, all that good stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.